In the next portion of this module, we'll discuss what you can do to retain what you're reading while you're reading it. So these are going to be some options for you to keep the information in a way that you can review later without needing to read everything again. The first strategy I want to discuss is called the SQ5R method. And you can see what the SQ and the 5 R's stand for there. Survey, question, read, recite, record, review, and reflect. I'm just going to change the slide so to represent the SQ5R in a different visual way. So the survey part we've talked about already, where you're surveying the chapter before reading it. You're doing this by checking the introduction, maybe the summary or the review question, checking the glossary, looking at the headings and the visuals, and all of this is used so that you can start to prepare your mind for what's coming up in the chapter. It also helps you maybe formulate some questions. Questions are really important because these are the things that you're actually trying to actively find the answers to. So having questions before you start reading is really crucial. The questions may come from the textbook in the form of review questions. They may come from your professor, or they may come from yourself as you've been surveying the chapter. Reading is where you're actually trying to answer the questions. So this is a way of going through the information, answering the questions. Some people like to recite the information out loud or have technology read it to them. Then the recording. So recording, how do you record the information in a way that you can remember it by reviewing it without having to read everything again? We'll talk about some options for this coming up. Reviewing. Reviewing is a really important aspect here because if you read something and you've learned something new, this is also true in a lecture. If you've heard and learned something new in a lecture or in a chapter of a book, in order to keep that, you have to review it. If you don't look at that information again, it's new to you, and then you don't look at it again until the test a month or two away, you might actually completely forget it. Or it'll be like learning about it for the first time. So review is an important part of taking it from your short-term memory and putting it into your long-term working memory. And reflection. So reflection is, I mentioned a little bit earlier, where you're starting to make connections between things you learned previously, other parts of your course, other classes in your program, and even connections to how you can use this information in your future career. So how do you capture the information? Well, there's a few different ways. Note-taking. There's a Cornell method of note-taking that I'll talk about. You can see that the page is broken up into 3 sections. The first part is really important to have a clear, meaningful title. That way, when you come back to this document later, you can create this digitally as well very easily. But when you come back to this later, you read the title and that should trigger a memory of the contents. You also, on the left-hand margin, you want to keep track of all the questions. And then in the other side, opposite the questions, is where you provide the answers in point form. So these are your main notes. Again, this can work equally well when you're reading a chapter or when you're attending a lecture. The last part of the Cornell method of note-taking is a very important part. It's called the summary. And you can see that in this case, I've summarized what I learned in 5 or 6 sentences. And in that time, basically what this has done is, in my own words, in my own voice, I've summarized what I've learned. So now when I come back to this document, I find it from the title. The first thing I should do is read the summary. This is myself explaining to me what this was about. And this actually will trigger a lot of memories for the contents. Then, as you're studying and reviewing, you can actually cover the answers and use the questions to try and remember the answers, or vice versa. Another option, instead of taking notes, is to use a marking system in your textbook. So you could use underlining and circling, as you can see in the example, or you can use highlights of different colors. But be mindful of your purpose and choose a simple system. And whatever system you choose, don't overuse it. Another option, if you don't want to make notes inside your textbook or marks inside your textbook, is to use Post-it notes. And Post-it notes you can get in different colors and different sizes, and you can use those to either put notes on or comments, things to help you later for your review.